It is a message called A Call for Wholehearted Commitment. It stems from a series of things I've been doing lately. Some books I've been reading. If any of you ever heard of A.W. Tozer, Pursuit of God, it is a book that you can hardly read without repenting of your life. And then in our men's group, we have a Tuesday morning men's group that we study with. And that men's group, we are currently studying Every Man is God's Man. And it's the same thing. It's calling the men of God to a higher standard to God. And so, some of you know for the last few weeks, and I'm not going to tell the whole long story, but I've asked the church, I've asked you over the next 90 days, pick a day of the week. My wife and I are using Thursdays because there's nothing good on television. But we're sacrificing. But we're picking Thursdays, and we are fasting and praying on Thursday evenings. We had the most incredible, my wife will tell you, the most incredible time this last Thursday night. We started at 6 o'clock, and my wife was thinking, well, how's this going to work? And so it was funny, I made out a prayer list, and she made out a prayer list, and we compared the list, and it's amazing how, they were very similar, and then yet very different. And so we spent time reading from A.W. Tozer's Pursuit of God. We spent some time reading from the Word of God. We spent some time just talking about God and in our church and what God is doing. We decided we would journal this next 90 days at minimum to see what God does. So we're asking you, church body, we believe that we belong in this building. We believe that we belong in this building. I believe, I joked about it a little bit last week about my Pentecostal moment because I'm Baptist, and that's an oxymoron. But I clearly believe that God has spoken to me and said, look, this is where you belong. Amen. This is where you belong. This morning in our men's fellowship, we're having men's fellowship, right? 3 hungry people came in, we were able to feed them this morning. And so I really believe this is where it belongs. So we're asking you to ask God for the next 90 days. I preached a message a couple of weeks ago about Caleb asking Joshua, he said, give me this mountain that God has promised me. Amen. And so I want you to encourage you to do that. Pick a night of the week. It could be any night of the week. But as a couple, as a family, decide you're just going to skip dinner one night. It won't hurt you, I promise. You skip dinner. If you're like me, I just ate 3 o'clock in the afternoon because I know I was going to skip dinner. But just spend some time with your spouse or with your family, just talking about what God's doing in your life. Amen. Just discussing what it is that's going on in your life with God. Because I'm going to be honest with you, even in our home, listen, you need to understand the pastors. I don't go home every night and we just talk about God all night around the house. I mean, that's just really the truth. We talk about the weather and what's on TV and talk about you a lot. No, I'm just kidding. Just kidding. But we don't really spend time just focusing on God. And so Thursday night we spent and that was the other part of that. We started at 6 o'clock at 10:30. We were still talking about God. Amen. Man, it was good. It was an amazing time. So I want to encourage you to consider doing that. Just go home, pick a fast day. And maybe for you it just has to be in the morning, whatever works. But I want you to petition God to give us this mountain. And I'm excited about what God's going to do with that. And so saying that, and the things that I'm studying, and the things I've been reading, on Wednesday night, which by the way, we're doing this amazing Bible study on Wednesday night. We're going through the Bible. And on Wednesday night, we were in the book of Deuteronomy this next week. And so we've been reading through that. And so, I've read Deuteronomy before, and more than once. And for some reason, chapters 6, 7, and 8 just came alive to me this week. That's amazing. And so what I'm going to do actually tonight, you ready for this? Who brought your Bibles? Come on. Okay. Here's what I want you to do. Lay down your Bibles. Turn off your cell phone to the Bible page. I just want you to listen tonight. Because I'm going to jump all around 6, 7, and 8 and not in any chronological order. People are nuts trying to follow me. But if you think that, I'm just making up verses, I'll give you my outline later. You can have it. But I want to share with you tonight, here's where Israel was. Israel had just went 40 years through the wilderness because they were disobedient to God. So they had just spent 40 years paying for disobedience that happened 40 years previously. So in chapter 5 of Deuteronomy, does anybody know what's significance out of the 5th chapter of Deuteronomy? 10 commandments were given. God gave the 10 commandments in chapter 5 of Deuteronomy. And so then we get into chapter 6, and so here's what happens, is God has commissioned Moses of this. It says, now these are the commands, just chapter 6, verse 1. These are the commands, decrees, and regulations that the Lord your God commanded me to teach you. Now this is what Moses said. This is here. I just spent some time on the mountain with God. He just gave me 10 commandments that are, we can't break these 10 commandments, which we do, but that's the whole point. And so he comes down from the mountain of God, and now the children of Israel, listen, everything is about to start new for Israel. They've wandered in they're free from 420 years of slavery. They have been free, praise God. They spent 40 days out, or 40 years, out in the wilderness, getting it right, trying to figure out what they're supposed to do, watching God do miracle after miracle after miracle. Listen, man, 2 million people saw enough water come out of rock that they all had something to drink. That's a God thing right there, man. That's larger than we can get our head around. And so they had to watch this happen and watch this happen. Moses gets the 10 Commandments, and so in chapter 6, 7, and 8, God starts laying out these things. And actually, the title of the message is a wholehearted. I call for a wholehearted commitment. That's what the title of my Bible is. So I'm great at doing titles, right? And then in chapter 7, there's a privilege of holiness. Chapter 8 is a call to remember and obey. And so I want to share with you that what happened in Israel's life is a direct mandate for our lives. You know, a lot of times you say, well, that's Old Testament, and that's back then, and that was God, and that's just the way that was. I want to share something with you. First of all, several times throughout this, it talks about these are permanent laws. These are laws that everyone should follow. Permanent laws for all time. And so as I'm reading this, and I'm praying about what's going to happen with our church in the future and where we're going. By the way, when I say what's going to happen, we're not closing the doors, we're not leaving anymore, we're not moving or shutting the doors. But there's some challenges we're going to face as we look toward December. And so in that, God started challenging me to a higher calling and a higher commitment to God. Started calling me pastor. And, you know, I've been in ministry 40 years. It's like, God, listen, man, I've got this down. Right? I'm the pastor, right? He said, you need a higher commitment. You need a greater passion. You need a greater understanding of who you are and who I am. And so in the book of Deuteronomy, as we look through this, there's this. What we're going to do, real quick, we're going to do a word study. And tonight really is a teaching message tonight. It's not really one of those hellfire spit the front crowd messages, but it's a teaching message. And so I want you to listen to this. In the book of Deuteronomy, 9 times God uses the phrase, obey that command which I give you. 9 times. He says, listen, here's what I'm going to do. Your life is about forever change. It is going to significantly change. And when you came to Christ, your life forever changed. When you came to Christ, you were taken out of bondage and put into freedom, and your life changed, and you just entered a holy land. And so God says, listen, this is what I want you to do, Israel. This is what I want you to do, church. This is what I want you to do, Christian. Wherever your walk is at, I want a greater commitment from your heart. Because here's the deal. This is what I believe, folks. I believe that when God does this amazing thing in our church, and we get this church and it's our building, God is calling us to a standard. And if we just say, oh, good, God, thank you for the church. We're good now. Shame on us. Amen. So there's a higher standard. There's a higher calling. There's a higher reason we should be here tonight. So I'm going to read some verses for you that's scattered throughout Deuteronomy chapter 6, 7, and 8. And then I'll try to bring this back to some sense here. So Deuteronomy 6:1 says, these are the commandments, decrees, and regulations that the Lord your God has commanded. Now, 3 things. Listen to this. The regulations, the decrees, and the commands. These are these things that the Lord your God has commanded me to teach you. So Moses said, listen, here's the deal. God told me, I'm not going to argue with God over this. It's my responsibility to share this with you. And so he goes on to say that you must obey them in the land that you're about to encounter or occupy. He said, so here's the deal. God told me to give you these things. And so I'm going to share these with you tonight. And as I share these with you tonight, I understand God said, I'm going to give them to you, and you must obey them. Amen. The interesting thing about you must 118 times. 118 times in the book of Deuteronomy, God says you must. You think maybe that's not optional? You think maybe he's trying to get the point across, really this is... Listen, let me see, God, I'm not sure if I get this right. He goes, no, you must. You must to get this right. So listen to this. Chapter 8, verse 6 says this. So obey the commands of the Lord your God, and by walking in his ways and fearing him. In 7 and 11, it says, the Lord God did not set his heart on you and choose you because you were more numerous than the other nations, for you were the smallest of all other nations. He said, look, you weren't really special. I didn't choose you because you're special. I chose you because I love you. Verse 11, that was the 7 that I read. Verse 11 says this. Therefore you must obey all these commands, decrees, and regulations that I am giving you this day. Chapter 8, verse 17, verse 1. Be careful to obey all the commands that I am giving you today. Verse 6 says, so obey the commands of the Lord your God by walking in his ways. Let's see, verse 24. And the Lord our God says, command that you obey these decrees and fear him, so that you will continue to be blessed and persevere your lives. Chapter 5, verse 32 says, you must be careful to obey all the commands that I have given you. And this goes on and on and on. So I just kind of get this sense that God says that this is important. You need to do this. You need to, for life, obey these commands.
Amen.
I mean, this sort of keeps going with this, and keeps going with this, and keeps going with this. And so, as I looked at the amount of times that he does this. He said before God, but there's this one verse, chapter 6 of Deuteronomy, verse 6. There's this one verse that he changes, and it's an interesting change. Verse 6, it says, you must commit yourselves wholeheartedly to these commands. You must commit yourself wholeheartedly to these commands. See, we spend most of our lives being half-hearted Christians. Listen, myself included, there's a whole lot of half-hearted pastors. There's a whole lot of us that just a little bit of Jesus is enough. Just a little bit of who God is enough. Because don't give me too much, I'll be Pentecostal. You know what I'm saying? Don't give me too much, man. I don't speak in tongues, brother, so don't be giving me too much, Jesus. Isn't that crazy? Don't give me too much. But we do that. And so God simply says, listen, not only should you obey these commands, you need to do them wholeheartedly. You need to do them sold out. You need to do them to such a level that all else is secondary to what it is. Your problems in life are secondary to what God is doing in your life. If you'll commit wholeheartedly, the stuff that will happen, you'll understand God's still in charge. It didn't surprise God. It's just as sad as it is, God knew that this would be your last year with Mom. He knew that. So it says wholeheartedly commit to God. Wholeheartedly give your life to God. And then he uses a couple of other key phrases that I just, as I was reading this, as I was reading through this, and I hope this spurs you to read these 3 chapters. It's in 6 and 3, it says, listen, O Israel. Or no, it says, listen closely. God says, now, you must do this. It is not optional. Obey these commands. Obey these commands. You must obey these commands. And then he said, now listen carefully. You see, as we continue through this, God is as clearly and plainly and absolutely as he can saying, I'm calling for a higher commitment in your life.
Amen. Yes, amen. I'm
calling for a greater purpose in your life. I'm calling for more in your life than you have been giving me. More than you've been giving me. Amen. Listen, I don't know about you, but that's tough. Because I'm telling you, as a pastor, when God started doing this in my heart, and I walk my dog in the morning and I pray. That's kind of my routine. I walk and pray and I walk and pray. And God started calling me this higher commitment. I said, God, I don't know what else. You know what he told me? He says, do you believe me or not? Do you really believe what I'm telling you? Do you really believe that what I want for you is more? Do you really believe that there's more you could give? Because there is. There's so much more. And so he says this in 6:3, he says, now listen closely. And then just in the very next verse, he says, listen, O Israel, listen to what I'm telling you. Listen to what I'm telling you. And then chapter 7. He just doesn't give up. He doesn't relent. In chapter 7, verse 12, he says, if you'll listen to these regulations and obey them faithfully, I'll bless you. If you'll listen and do what I ask you to do, I'm going to bless your socks off. So as I'm reading through this and I'm just trying to figure out, God, where are you going with this and what do you want from this? It simply says, I want a higher commitment out of your life. I expect more out of your life. And listen, I'm about to bless your socks off, and when I do, I expect you to not do anything with it, to just ignore it. I want you to be excited about what's going to happen in your life. I want your church to be excited about the changes that's going to happen in their life.
Amen.
Listen,
Amen.
what a great idea. Now listen to this. Think about this. Now think about this. Wouldn't it be just a really cool idea if history would record that the greatest revival that ever happened in the state of California happened at the St. Germain's Church in the city of California? And that happens. Listen, man, I watched a video the other day, a little black church. Where's that at, San Francisco? Little black church in San Francisco. Anybody know what I'm talking about, except for you two? You ever heard of the Azusa Street Revival? An amazing revival started in a little black church in San Francisco, a little shabby building, man, it was cool, like this one. It was a shabby little thing. A couple of guys got together, and then pretty soon God just started blessing them. A couple of guys got together. You know what happened? You know what happened? These guys wholeheartedly obeyed what God wanted them to do. They did some stuff that was outside the box. They did some believing outside the box. I know some of you think I'm crazy when I'm telling you God spoke to me and said you belong here. You can be wrong if you want to. And that's outside my box. But folks, when God does what God wants to do, I think you just have to say, okay. So 7 and 12, I want to read this one more time because it goes on and says, so if you listen to these regulations and faithfully obey them, the Lord your God will keep his covenant and unfailing love with you, as he's promised. And he will love you and bless you. He will love you and bless you. Now, I don't know about you, but I've said this before. That whole, that guy wants his cake and eat it too. You darn right I want my cake and eat it too. I want everything that God has. I want everything that God has for me. I want everything God has for you. As I look at your lives and I watch your lives, and to be honest with you, here it is. Some of you have just been religious for too long and not committed enough. Some of you have been going to church too many years and you've heard the gospel too many times, and you got to the point that's like, yeah, good for you, preacher. I'm sure God, we got some crummy people in church that need the gospel because I don't. Isn't that the truth? Listen, man, I'm good. I'm good. Shoot, man, I'm a trustee. Uh-oh. I'm telling you now, bro. That's okay. I haven't had a raise coming up for a while, so I'm good. Listen, man, I got news for you. I'm hardly in a circle of church. I'm a servant leader. But as I've been reading this, and I've been praying about this, and I've been trying to listen to the voice of God in a way that I haven't ever before, God has said, listen, you and your people, and it's not my church, it's God's church, so understand that. But God, clearly, you need to understand that God says clearly, I've given you responsibility over these people. So you and your people need a greater commitment to God.
Amen. Yes.
Ouch. Ouch, but yes. Ouch, but yes, serious about Jesus, of course. Listen, we have ministries that just knock the socks up. I have pastors literally almost every week at these pastors' luncheons I go to. Almost every week say, man, I wish we were doing as much as your church was doing. I mean, we got great stuff, we got programs, but I just wish we would just be out, feeding the homeless. I wish we'd be working with the recovery ministries. I just wish we would. But you know what? A.W. Tozer writes this. He said, we have become, and this is 1948, he wrote this, by the way, today. He said, we've become churches full of good programs. Good programs. We've become churches that have done a great job at teaching our people. So, man, we've got these, we got Monday night, Wednesday night, Tuesday morning, Tuesday night, Thursday night. I mean, we got Bible studies going on. We're teaching people. And A.W. Tozer said, we have done an excellent job in this time, this was 1948, of teaching our people and telling our people about God and teaching them God. What we've failed to do is explain that they now need a relationship with God. You see, there's a big difference between knowing about God and relationship with God. There's a big difference about understanding who God is and being able to quote the Bible and being able to teach a class and being able to just really impress everybody how godly you are. There's a big difference between that and a relationship with God. And church, God is calling us, amen. God is calling us to a holy calling. That's a hard message. I know. Man, you're quiet, by the way. I'm just saying. I'm just saying. Hello, you out there? Yeah, no. God is calling us to a higher standard. And then he goes on to say this. I'm getting almost to the end here. He goes on to say this. And this stems from the conversation that Denise and I had. And she was brought up, my wife was brought up. I wasn't brought up in a Christian family. But my wife was. They had a garage that they literally sometimes in their garage. Well, they had Bible study 7 nights a week in the garage, and there were some nights there would be 100 people packed in the garage and sitting on chairs outside on the driveway to go into the Bible study. Wow. But as we talked about this Thursday night, and then as I read this, you know that part where it says, listen? They're talking about listen closely to Israel. You know that part? Let me read this for you. Verse 4, chapter 6, verse 4. Listen to Israel, the Lord your God. Our Lord is our God, and He is God alone. So you must love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, all your strength. And you must commit yourself wholeheartedly to the commands that I am giving you. And then he says this in verse 7. Repeat them again and again to your children. Talk about them when you were at home, and when you were on the road, and when you were going to bed, and when you were getting up, and tie it on your forehead, and tie it on your wrist, and write them on the doorpost. Talk about it to your children. Amen. Let your children know you care about God. Let your children know they need to care about God. Let your children know. You see, in Joshua's, right after one of those stories on one generation from the time God spoke to Israel, the next generation didn't know who God was. Didn't know who God was. It says, teach your children. Speak to your children. And then the same chapter, verse 20. It says, in the future, your children will ask you, what is the meaning of these laws, decrees, and regulations that the Lord God has commanded us to obey? And it said, and then you must tell them. Talks about being delivered out of Egypt. Speak to your children. Man, I'm telling you, I believe if we just did that, if we all went home and decided we would invest in our kids and invest in somebody think, well, my kids are grown, that's okay. You got grandbabies. Teach your children. So again, my wife and I, we were talking, and she said, I was raised in church. We had Bible study 7 nights a week in church. But she goes, I don't remember us really talking about God just around the house. Now think about your house, folks. Think about where you're at here. I don't really remember us just talking about God around the house. Or we're having a conversation about God in the house. Now, it's easier if it's just a couple. My wife and I, we spend some time in the morning talking about God. But in all honesty, in our years of marriage, we've never stopped and just dedicated a night for 6 to 10 o'clock and talked about God. Just spend some time. And so God knew that He knew that if you did not learn these statutes, these regulations, and the decrees, if you did not talk about them with your children, if you weren't wholeheartedly committed to them, if that's what was going on, you would soon forget. He says in chapter 5, I'm going to almost finish with this. Chapter 5. You just got the 10 Commandments. The children of Israel had heard the voice of God and scared the bejeebers out of them. They heard the voice of God and it frightened them. And so they did what all good Christians do when they get frightened about God. They repent. Oh yeah, God, yes. Yay! I am sorry, Jesus. Yeah, right? But God is so smart. This is what He says in chapter 5, verse 29. Oh, that they would always have hearts like this, that they might fear me and obey my commands. And if they did, their descendants would prosper forever. He says, go tell them, go give them these decrees. So God knew. He said, only if they would. Oh, if they just would. And every now and then in the church, folks, we just need a real, live, spirit-filled, God-touching revival. That we recommit our hearts to God. That suddenly it's not important what you look like or how you act or who you know or who you're mad at or not who you're mad at or whether you like this band or that band or whether you like this preacher or that preacher. There comes a point where God says, listen, this is what I want you to do. Put all that stuff aside. Wholeheartedly commit your heart to me.
Amen.
Amen. Oh, come on up, Lou, and I'm going to try to figure out how to finish this. Sometimes, God, there's this wonderful passage about that when we can't pray, the Holy Spirit prays for us. I don't know if you know about that verse. There's a verse in the New Testament there. Talk about when we can't pray, the Holy Spirit prays for us. And sometimes we can't pray because we're so brokenhearted. Sometimes we can't pray because we just don't have an answer. I mean, we don't know how to ask a question that's so hard. Listen, there's some hard stuff going on sometimes in some of your lives. And it's like, God, I don't know how to ask you to get me out from under this. You know? And so there's these moments in our life that Henry Black would call a crisis in belief. That do I just wholeheartedly give this to God, or do I try to work it out myself? Because I'm pretty good at working stuff out. Not really. Not really. And so there's this point where I'm at right now that I feel like I'm having trouble putting across what God's put in my heart to do or to say. But folks, we're about to take communion, remembering the shed, broken body and blood of Jesus Christ. What a moment, what a time, what a time to recommit our heart to God. What a time to say, God, I don't even know what this means. I don't even know where it's going to take me. I don't know what path it's going to take me down. God, I'm outside my comfort zone. To be honest with you, I'm not good at being religious. I'm not good at this churchy stuff. And you know what God does? God does not want your religion or this churchy stuff. He wants your heart. He wants you to just fall in love with Jesus.